I'm Jason Prichard, and you guys are listening to the 1 Degree Podcast.
Man, that was good too. We had a
professional.
CK did it last week, and that was by far the best. But that one was pretty good too.
Good.
Great.
Me and Kenny were talking about earlier. I just started carnivore. You ever done carnivore? Or have you ever done
I haven't.
any-
No, I've done. Right now, I've done intermittent fasting. That's what's probably kept
Huge.
me as lean as I am. I'm going to be 43 in a couple weeks. So
43.
yeah,
He looks way better than you, Wiggins.
I know.
Yeah. I've tried carnivore, keto, all that stuff, but it's hard for me to stay consistent with it.
Yeah,
So,
me and my wife started yesterday, and I was telling him earlier I can't really trust the fart. So
Yeah.
just if I have to get up and go, that's why.
I just finished like a 42 hour fast. So
What's the longest you've ever went fasting?
I did recently the one that Dana White had kind of popularized, where it was, I think, 72 hours. So it was 3 days with
Yep.
water and then electrolytes without any like calories,
Yep.
0 calorie electrolytes.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
a good one.
I felt pretty good, dude. After like a day and a half, I was fine.
Yeah.
It was just getting past that first 24 hours, but I've done a bunch of 24-hour fasts, so the 3-day wasn't as bad. It was a good reset.
Kenny's wife just did her first fast, huh?
yeah,
What was that like for you, being on the sidelines?
it wasn't that
You were
bad.
doing it with
I was
her,
doing
but
it too, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't. It's just drink water when you get hungry.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. She's
just
like,
drink water.
she said last night got a little rough, but
What's the thing that you say when people are complaining or not doing their job?
just do your job.
Just do your job.
Yeah, just do what you say you're gonna do.
That's it.
That's all.
That's it.
All right, let's get into this. We
Let's
got the man himself, Jason Prichard. If you don't know Prichard, he's a real estate investor here in the Central Valley. One of the best, one of the best out there. But what makes him unique and special is he's not afraid to help people. So I reached out to Jason one time. Today's the first day we ever met.
Yeah.
I texted him randomly and was like on a whim, seeing what he would say. And this man helped me, answered every single one of my questions. He was like, yeah, Tyson, what do you need help with? How can I help you? Sent me everything that I needed, and I was on my way. And that's a very rare thing to see nowadays, because everybody's kind of in their own lane, or they're doing their own thing, or they act like they help people, but they really don't. This man right here actually truly helps people when he can, and I think that that's something that's really, really cool, and I appreciate you, taking the time out.
No, you're welcome, bro. I really enjoy transferring the things that I've learned and that have made me successful to as many other people as I can. I'm not self-made. There were people that helped me along the way, and I believe it's very important to always remember that and pay that forward, man. This is a business that we're in, that opportunities are abundant and there's no shortage of it, and I found that we get to where we want to go faster when we collaborate with people instead of trying to compete with them. And it's hard when we come from competitive environments and backgrounds to have that shift, and especially in this business, there's lots of big egos, but it's worked very well for me over the last 10 years, man, so can't complain.
Yeah, it's. I actually went to your Deal Champs VIP dinner or party or whatever the other night, and I met like 5 guys there. I was on the plane with them because I had to fly to Kansas City the next day. I was on the connector to Salt Lake with them, and we chopped it up. And I've already talked to them a few things about investing some stuff. So just like having that network of that you build and create the good relationships with is huge, especially in real estate.
Dude, there's no secrets, dude. The information is already out there. And I learned that, and I'm sure we'll get into it. It's like if you can go and watch YouTube, go on social media, listen to a few podcasts. That's how I got started. I was self-taught at the beginning. How proprietary can information really be? And is there really secrets if all that information is just floating around out there? So yeah, dude, abundance mindset has gotten me very, very far in this business.
Did you play sports growing up? Were you a sports guy?
I did. I played everything when I was growing up, and then when we got to high school, basketball was the sport that I stuck with, and I played through my senior year. I was a power forward and center, and I just never had the height to go play at the next level. I really didn't really have the desire to either. You know what I mean? I think there was other things that I was doing. I had a son kind of around that time too, so for me, professional sports wasn't in the cards for me. But I always played growing up, and it's a lot of stuff that I've learned from playing sports when I was younger that apply towards what I'm doing in business now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. If playing sports and what you learn from teamwork and the competitive environment and just working hard, if that had any translation into what you're doing now.
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is you've got to get your reps in, and you've got to. I've learned through practice. That's what helped develop my ability when I was playing sports when I was younger. And there's things that I equate to the practice that we need to get in the real estate business to help bridge the skill gap that a lot of people have when they're transitioning from some other environment where you're just not going to be good. You're not going to be good getting on the phone talking to sellers. You're not going to be good at appointments when you're first going out. And so you need to get your reps in through all of the kind of the dirty work that most people don't want to do. They want to see the end result. They want to see like the HGTV remodel. They want to participate in all the money that's there afterwards, but they don't want to go on their calls. They don't want to go on their appointments. They don't want to train. They don't want to do any of that stuff. And that's what I used to equate like practice during the week before the game. You know what I'm saying? It's like we have to get good during practice before it's game time, man. And so a lot of people want to skip that part, and that's why they either flame out or they don't realize how much work is involved in this business on the front end.
So how the Deal Champs that you guys did, it was a real estate seminar. Was it the first time doing this? I know you've done other ones, but was this the first Deal Champs, or have you done
That's
it in the
the
past?
first Deal Champs seminar, right? And so if you look at that, right, and that's your first time ever coming to an event that we've ever done, it's at this amazing venue. We have all of these cool speakers. It looks and feels like this big thing. I got started putting on meetups where there was like 7 people in a room, and it was me, dude. You know what I'm saying? And so this is a good point about the practice thing. Like people say, oh, you're a good public speaker. Oh, you're good at putting on events. I've been putting events on up and down the state of California for 7 years, dude.
For free.
For free. And there was 3-4 years when it was 7-8 people in a room, 12-15 people in a room. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm not charging anything. I don't even really have a goal. My intent was just to try to provide value to other people there, and just realize that at some point that value is going to come full circle to my business. And it was through all of those reps of doing that stuff that we eventually, a month ago, put on that event over there, dude. And so it's, again, going back to the point that you were making about, you know, getting your reps in and practicing. That's what I was doing for a very long time. And then it culminated in that event.
And putting on like those events, you never know what's going to come from them, right? Like you never know what contact you're going to meet, or who's going to show up, or who's going to be a mentor to you, or whatever it is. And it's just, like you said, just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and hopefully it sticks.
Yeah, that's right, man. And I think the word relationship got brought up by a lot of the speakers there, and the relationships that they make from those events. And so for me, what I learned is there's so many people speaking. There's so many different topics that they're discussing. It's easy to get information overload and kind of get frozen. And it's like, there's so much that I learned here. What do I want to do? So what I always did, whether it's a big event like that, or it was a smaller like networking meetup where it was just something a little bit smaller and more intimate, I want to walk away with like 1 or 2 pieces of information or 1 or 2 golden nuggets that I can apply towards my business for a year. And let's just implement those things. Let's not get too fancy. Let's just see these things that work, the 2 ideas that maybe stick out and resonate with me the most. And we had 400 plus people there, right? The whole point of why Dean and Stratton and I put those things on is to try to create environments where you can connect, like at that party with other people, or you can go and meet a private money lender, or somebody that can bring deals to you, or somebody where there's synergies and overlaps in your business. And that's where the real magic happens right there. It's, I've never been involved in a business where relationships are more important than it is in real estate, and creating environments like that just allow for a lot of those things to happen and to take place.
Two quotes that got me into real estate and also helped like open my eyes up to like what was possible, because the only thing I ever did growing up was play sports, and that was the only avenue that I thought that I could be successful in, was throwing a baseball or football or playing basketball. Because when I grew up, I watched, you know, MTV Cribs, and it was all athletes and, you know, celebrities, and I thought that that's what success was. So I thought the only way that I can be successful and have money was to play a sport.
Yep.
And somebody told me, this was kind of like the later in my career, you know who it is, I'll tell you after, but we're talking about real estate, and this is probably like my 7th or 8th year, and I was starting to think about I was going to do after my career, and I was like, man, I want to get into real estate too. But I was like, I said, it takes money to make money. And he looked at me and he says, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's true.
It takes information.
Yep.
And he said that, and I was like, wow, like that's crazy. So you're saying that it's possible for me to be like, I was having this conversation on my own in my head, and I was like, man, so that kind of opened up the doors. And then the second one was, the best currency in the world is relationships. That if you know the right people, you can get all the money in the world, but all the money in the world ain't going to fix your problems or
that's right,
get that deal done. But if you have the right relationships with the right people, you can get to where you want to go.
Money in this business is one of the easier things to find, right? There's lots of different puzzle pieces that you're trying to put together at the end when you're trying to get started in real estate investing. And I found the reason why I'm successful, and I see the people that I'm around that tend to have the most consistency and success in the business is that they've gotten really good at being a deal finder. They're the conduit for all the deals that come, and everybody else that's getting a little piece of the pie that you bring to the table as the person that brings the deal, they're getting paid off the strength of you bringing that deal to the table. So the contractors, the lenders, the escrow officers, the title companies, there's all these people, the real estate agents, the mortgage brokers, all those people that get a little bit of a slice of the pie that you're bringing. As long as you run the numbers the right way, you should have the biggest piece of the pie for yourself left over, right? So if you get really good at finding deals and you become the conduit for those deals, everybody else is eating off of the pie that you're bringing to the table. You're the one that's going to have the most leverage typically in that type of business transaction. So I always recommend get great at finding those opportunities first. And the other stuff that you need, the contractors, the lenders, all those people will typically find you if you're doing a good job finding those deals.
So what exactly do you do? And for people that don't know, you know, they hear real estate investor, they just think that you own a bunch of real estate.
Yeah,
they don't really know what it is. So what exactly is your business that you've made very, very successful? And then overall, what is real estate investing?
Yeah, so when I first got into real estate investing, I was literally just trying to replace my income from my old corporate job. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I could just make the same amount of money that I was making at my old job, but I can do that being my own boss and investing in real estate, I would have been a happy camper. So when I got started, I literally burned the boats, I left my job, and I went all into real estate because I'm the type of person that operates better under pressure. When I know that there's not a safety net there, right, I typically rise to the occasion in that type of situation. So I don't recommend that everybody quit their job and dive all into real estate. That's what worked for me. And I think you need to be self-aware of what you're good at and what you're bad at. And if you apply or perform well under pressure, then maybe you need to do that. Because I experienced so much failure in that first year. There were so many times that I wanted to give up. If I had 1 foot in corporate America and 1 foot in real estate, it would have been too easy for me to just say, you know what, this isn't really for me. I'm just going to kind of divert back to my comfort zone. You know, this is only for people that you see on TV and stuff like that. I'm not really cut out for it, but I didn't really have a plan B, right? So for me, I started in 2014. And initially I was just wanting to flip houses. I know it sounds kind of like cliche, but my wife and I used to watch all the flipping shows on TV. And I was like, dude, I can do that. I'm smart enough to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I used to tell myself that all the time. And I was like, dude, if this freaking guy on TV can do it, I know that I can do this, right? And my wife and I would watch and we would joke about that stuff. And I had to leverage, I think, my strengths, which was in corporate America. I had been in sales and sales management for 15 years. I was really good at understanding how to generate opportunities through marketing, get them into our business, and then qualify those opportunities. And I was not afraid to deal with rejection. That's one of the things that I really, I just built some really thick skin when I was in corporate America because I was always commission-based, performance-based compensation packages, right? Like if you're constantly not performing, raising the bar every single month, you're getting that type of thing. So for me, going out and getting told no didn't really mean anything to me. And I think that's what people struggle with when they're trying to break into this business initially, is that they want to do the HGTV remodel, but they don't understand where does that house even come from initially. And a lot of that has to come with going on 100 appointments, and to go on 100 appointments, you may have to have 1,000 phone calls. And on those 1,000 phone calls, you're getting told no 999 times. And on those 100 appointments, you're getting told 99 times just to get that one yes. But that one yes could make you $100 grand. So it's like, for me, my thing was, how fast can I get told no 100 times? You know what I'm saying? And so I got really good at just going out and kind of refining my process, going out and finding opportunities. And the first year, I think we flipped 6 or 7 houses, and I replaced my corporate income. Second year, we doubled that. Third year, I started buying rental properties. I bought my first rental property in 2016. By 2019, we had 50 rental properties. Now we have over 100 rental units, mainly based in Central California, and we run a business that does fixing and flipping, wholesaling. We're constantly looking for rental properties too, and we have a brokerage side and an agent side to the business as well. So we're kind of a full service real estate investing company.
Dang.
Is this where you want to be? Is this where you've kind of like found yourself at home in real estate?
Real estate investing is definitely my vehicle of choice, and it feels like what I was supposed to be on this earth to do. And I think just because I'm really happy with what I'm doing now doesn't mean I'm not working, right? And I think that's a misconception with a lot of people. It's honestly, I work more hours in my business now than I ever did in corporate America. If you're just looking about when I'm working, I'm up early, we work late. That happens all the time. You know what I mean? But I love it. None of it feels like work. None of it felt like when I was at my office at my old job or in my cubicle at my old job. So for me, I feel like this is what I want to do for right now. I know that because I've been around other highly successful real estate investors that are doing large scale commercial developments or building large multifamily. I know that that's the trajectory that I'm on. So at some point, I know that we'll eventually graduate toward doing something like that. But in this space where I'm at right now, I'm really happy with our team and the business that we have.
So we'll get into the future and the goals in a little bit. How did you get into real estate investing? I know I already asked this question, but was there like a change in your life that happened, and like how hard was it in your first couple years? Like you just talked about, like you weren't afraid to, get said no to a lot, because I'm kind of in that transition. He's kind of in that transition to where like playing sports for a long time and you have your identity and everybody else has your identity as a certain thing. So to get them to switch, as a realtor or an investor or, business owner, everybody still sees you as this one thing. And it's been a lot harder for me. I know him a little bit for sure too. Like we thought that transition would be easy. Oh, 'cause we played sports. It was hard. We can do this.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. Were you kind of forced into this a little bit, or did you kind of
it's an interesting story, and it's one that I have become more comfortable talking openly in public forums about recently, so I'll be happy to share with you guys. The condensed version of me is I'm from Fresno. My dad was a teacher at Fresno State. My mom stayed home, raised me and my sister. So education was always a very big thing for me because my dad was in education.
Our wives were both teachers.
Yeah.
Or were a teacher, current teacher.
And my wife was a high school counselor too, right? So education was always something that was ingrained in me. So I was always taught, go to school, go to college, get a good job, work really hard, and then you can retire when you're 60 or 70. And that's what I did. I always got really good grades. I went to college, and the very first life event that kind of happened that changed the trajectory of my life is I had a son when I was young. I was 19 going on 20 when my son was born. And I really, at that point, I felt like I was at this crossroads where I was like, I need to start taking my life way more seriously than I am right now. I didn't want to be a deadbeat dad. I didn't want to be this loser dad. I was working at a company basically making minimum wage, but I immediately started looking for avenues on how I could make more money in that existing company because I knew that what I was making was not going to cut it financially. And I got into the outside sales department of that company. So we were selling technology products and services to business. So we're literally going door to door, making tons of phone calls. And I did really, really well, dude. I went from making minimum wage, which was like $6 an hour at that time, to making $100,000 plus in just over 18 months. Like literally, it was a very, very fast transition for me.
How old?
I was 23 going on 24.
So you're making a lot of money at a young age.
And this was in 2003-04. So for me, I was like, dude, this is it. I was like, I found it. This is it. This is what I'm going to do. And I thought at that time that I was going to climb the corporate ladder. I was going to end up being like maybe like a regional sales director or some kind of middle corporate manager.
Who is it with? Who'd you work with?
So the company that I work with was a technology retailer called CompUSA, and they had this outside business sales department where we had a storefront where people could come in, but we targeted like all the corporate accounts, the schools, the hospitals, that type of stuff. And those were the guys that made the most money there at the store. So I was just like, how do I work with you guys? And I got like an entry level position with that team. And then I moved into a sales role very quickly. And then I moved into a management role within like all of that happened within like 6 or 9 months. And then once I became the manager, that's when I started making like north of 6 figures. And so I thought at that point, I was like, this is going to be it, dude. This is what I'm going to do. And I thought my life was going to be me making $400,000 or $500,000, having a really nice house, having a nice car, having a family. I kind of envisioned that as being my career trajectory. And then I found myself in this space in my early 30s where I had left that company. I went to another company and I thought, well, you know what? It's the management here. The company's initiatives aren't the right ones. It wasn't really aligned with my vision. I moved to another place. I was doing something similar. And I went through the same exact cycle where I started out really hot, started climbing the ladder. I became disenchanted. And I was like, dude, I remember like sitting in my office one day when I was like 32, 33 and thinking like, this cannot be it, dude. This cannot be what the rest of my life is going to look like. I had a coworker that was older. I would look over at him and I basically could see my future at that point and say, if I don't do something different, I'm basically looking at what the next 20 years looks like for me, man. And I was projecting a lot of that unhappiness that I had into my relationship with my wife, into my relationships with my kids. And I had to take a good hard look in the mirror and just realize I was unhappy because of me and the position that I was putting myself in. And I needed to make a change. And so what I normally say when we're having this discussion is I burned all the boats. And in 2014, we started investing in real estate. We never looked back. And then the rest is history type of thing. But there was a period of my life from 2012 to 2014, which was like the hardest period of my life ever. It's like I hit rock bottom in 2012 and then got dragged along the bottom for 2 years straight. And in 2014, that was my launching off period into real estate. So I'll share with you guys kind of what happened and we can unpack that. And that was really kind of the foundation of my real estate investing journey. So in October 20th of 2012, I was involved in a car accident and I was at fault at that car accident because I had been drinking and driving. And it was something that had literally changed my entire life, my family's life. Without getting into too much detail, I went through a very long period where I was in and out of court. We were looking at all of these different things. And I ended up getting sentenced to 6 months of inpatient rehab facility where I lived in the Salvation Army men's rehab facility from August of 2013 to February of 2014. And that period of my life was basically what laid the foundation for this. So if you guys are cool unpacking that, we can talk a little bit about that story and then we can kind of get into it, man. So
sure.
One of the things that I like to share about this story is one decision can change your entire life. And this was the one decision that changed my life that night. So my wife was out of town. She had just gotten a job as an admissions counselor at UC Davis, literally like just had graduated from college. She got this amazing job. She was going away for training. And she goes, hey, I'm going to be gone for the weekend. We did not have our kids because our kids, we had custody of them on different weekends. We both had kids from different relationships. So it ended up being a weekend where there was nobody going to be there. And what did I do? I was like, let me call all my boys. My wife's out of town. We're going to go hang out. We'll have some drinks. We'll have some fun, whatever, right? So I did that. So we went out. We ended up having dinner, started drinking, and then we ended up going to Tower District and we just started bar hopping. And at this time, there was no Uber back then. This was 2012. So that, at least in Fresno, there was no Uber. And I hated leaving my cars at the places that I went to. So we ended up at Bobby Salazar's in Tower District. And I always used to use this rideshare service called We Be Sober. And the way that their business model was set up was for $20, I think at that time, they would send 2 people in a car. You would ride in their car with the driver, and then one of the other guys would drive your car back to your house because you never had to leave your car wherever you wanted to do, right? So this is the last thing that I remember about that night. I called them. I walked outside of the bar that we were at, right onto the sidewalk right there in Tower District, and they came to pick me up, okay? And I was sitting there talking to the driver, literally getting ready to hand the keys over to the guy. I was getting ready to jump in the car, and from behind me, one of my friends comes up, and he lives right around the corner. And literally you could walk to his house. And he goes, dude, where are you going? He goes, just leave your car here. Your wife's gone. Just come to my house. We can have a couple drinks. You can crash on the couch, get up in the morning, drive home. And that's the last thing that I remember about that night. And it was legitimately, bro, like that one decision. Had I gotten in that car, I mean, I'm probably not even sitting here on this desk, dude. I don't believe that, dude. Right? So the most important thing that I think for the people that are listening to watching this is one decision, even though you don't think it's an inconsequential thing or it's an important thing that's going on, one decision can change the trajectory of your entire life. The next thing I remember, it was 6:30 in the morning. I had just completely blacked out. We just overdid it. We just did too much. And I was woken up by the impact of the accident that I was involved in the next morning. So my whole front end of my Tahoe got smashed up. The hood opened up, the airbag deployed, my nose was broken, and my car was still driving down the street. And I was still out of it from the night before. So it took me like a minute or two to like really grasp what was going on. I was like, am I dreaming? Is this real? Like what's actually happening? And I pulled my car over to the side of the road. I got out. I realized that this was real and I had hit somebody, and I called 911 and I said, hey, I've been in an accident. I've been drinking. You need to send somebody to pick me up. I'm right here. And then I called my wife, and this is 6:30 the next morning. This woman's literally getting ready to go to the first day of like this job that she's been working like her whole college career for. And I'm like hysterical at this point. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to get arrested right now. I'm on the side of the road. I don't know what's going on, but they're coming to pick me up. I've been drinking and driving, and I'm just letting you know, I'd send somebody down here. Send your mom, send somebody down here to come pick me up, please. She stopped what she was doing. She drove back. Eventually, Highway Patrol came. They booked me. I ended up going to Fresno County Jail. I stayed in the little holding tank. I eventually bailed out. And I remember walking down the steps of the jail, and my wife and my mom and my dad and my stepmom were right there. And I walked straight up to my wife. And this was the first thing that she told me when she saw me. She goes, no matter what happens, we're going to figure this out. I don't care what's going on. I don't care what has to happen. We're going to work on this together and we'll figure it out. And to my wife's credit, one of the biggest decisions that anybody will make is the spouse or the partner that they choose in her life. And she was somebody that believed in me even when I did not believe in myself, dude. And there was a long period of that time after that accident to where we are now, where my self-confidence was wrecked. My mindset was wrecked, dude. It was just this really, really hard situation that we had to work through, dude. And she was a rock the entire time. Never once wavered off that statement with me. So we'll fast forward a little bit, okay? I had never really been in trouble before. So at that time, I didn't really know what to expect. You know, I'd been working. I'd gone to school. I was a good person. You know what I mean? At least that's what I thought in my head, that made a very serious mistake. And I just was unsure what was going on. So we got a lawyer, and I just said, hey, what's the worst case scenario? I was like, just level with me and tell me what's the worst case scenario right now? This is the very first meeting that I had with this guy. And he goes, well, worst case scenario is the person that you hit is seriously injured or hurt. And you're going to go to prison for 8 or 10 years. And I was like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, what are you talking about, dude? And it was that was when it really first dawned on me, how serious of a situation that I was in. Right. And then I said, well, what's the best case scenario? And he said, well, best case scenario is, he's fine. There's not any serious injury. Everything is okay. And you're probably looking at a 6-month rehab program. And I said, well, what does that mean? And it says, well, you're going to probably have to do an inpatient program, which means you're going to have to go live at a facility for 6 to 12 months. And I told him, I said, dude, I've got a job. I was like, I have bills to pay. I was like, I have all of this stuff. I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, Jason, I don't really think you understand or grasp the severity of what's going on. Right. So it's there's all these moments, man, that I can still, even right now, talking to you and relaying that stuff, I can remember being at that guy's office, sitting down at his desk, and all the weight of that.
I can tell, you're the feeling of
all the weight kind of coming down on me, man. And so, that for me was a very, that was the start of a very, very long road where I realized, damn, dude, I have a long road to go before my life is going to look and feel anything like normal. Okay. So the good news about all of this situation is that the gentleman that I hit, thank God, did not have any serious injuries. So we ended up finding that out much later, right? But at that time, I didn't know because they don't release that information to you. So he was never seriously hurt. Thank God nothing happened. It was just bumps and bruises, but we found out about that after the fact, okay? So fast forward a little bit. I ended up having to go to court basically every month, right? And the lawyer basically told me, he said, look, what we're going to do is just try to push this out. The other thing that was happening at this time was there was another very high profile DUI case that had happened where the basketball coach from Central High School had hit the family that was over there off of Shepherd by Yosemite Ranch. I guess he had come from that restaurant and he was drinking. That was all in the news, and it was election season at that time too. So you had this combination of that high profile case. Judges are trying to get reelected. They don't want to look like they're being lazy with something like this.
They have to make an example.
So exactly. So it was my lawyer was like, listen, we have to extend, try to buy some time, let all this stuff kind of die down, and then I'll work. And I was not trying to beat anything. I was just trying to see what was the best deal that I could get, honestly. I wasn't trying to fight the case, right? So I went along with this plan. So every month we would go to court, and I had no idea how the legal process worked. So for me, we would show up early. My lawyer would go back to the judge's chambers, and he would talk with the DA and the judge, and they would try to hammer out some type of deal for me, right? So every month I would show up. They would go into the back before court even starts. He would come back out, and I'd be sitting there on the bench, and he'd say, okay, we're going to extend another 30 days. And it was that maybe 3 or 4 times, okay? 6 months in, we show up again for another court date. He goes in the back like he has always done. He comes out and he has this look on his face like he didn't look like how he had come back the normal times. And he goes, let's go outside and I need to talk to you about something. So we went outside, and I'll never forget this either. There's a little bench outside of the courtroom and he goes, sit down. And he says, the best that they're willing to give you is 18 months. And he goes, and I said, well, what does that mean? 18 months of what? And he goes, well, it's 18 months in big boy prison, because in California, this type of DUI is considered a violent crime. And so you're going to have to, like, if we don't work something out, this is going to, you're going to end up being housed with all the other violent offenders. And dude, even now, like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry in that moment, dude. And
that's what I was going to ask. Like, what was the first feeling?
You want to know what the first thing that went through my mind is? I flash back to every fucking prison movie that I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, dude, I looked at my lawyer and I was like, look at me. There's no way that I'm going to be able to like go to big boy. So we need to work something out. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to figure something else out. Right. And so.
You're good.
You good? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so I said, what do we need to do? Like, what can we do here? Okay. And what he told me was, you're going to have to go to every single friend, every family member you have. You're going to have them write a letter to the court and explain that you're a good person. You just made a mistake in this situation. We need people to vouch for your character. We need to show the court that you are a decent human being and that you're not just reckless doing like all this crazy stuff. Right. And dude, I didn't talk to any of my friends or family member. Like, 2 people knew that this happened. Like, besides my immediate family, like nobody else knew. I was like going to work every day. One of my really good friends who I worked with at the time, he was picking me up, driving me to work, taking me home. I was making up a story like I didn't have a car and like all this stuff. Like, I was like living this big lie at the time.
I think we know who that is.
Yeah. And so it was just like, I kept everything hidden. I didn't want to tell anybody because I had so much shame and guilt about like the position that I had put my family in. I just had a hard time talking to anybody. So I had to make a bunch of calls to friends and family members that thought everything was good. And I had to ask them, I said, hey, I've been involved in this accident. Here's what's going on. If you can find it in your heart to write a character reference in the form of a letter to the judge that we can give to the judge just to show him that I'm a decent person and that this was a mistake.
So this is how all of your family found out.
Most of my family and my closest friends. Yep.
And ask them for...
I had to make a bunch of phone calls. I just remember sitting down one weekend and just calling everybody and just saying and having to tell this story over and over and over again and dealing with that shock that they had on the other end and all that stuff. And all of my family showed up and came through for me, man. And so they wrote all these letters. We kept extending, and finally, my attorney was able to get the judge to agree to give me a 6-month rehabilitation program. And that was a big domino that had to fall because, I mean, at that point, I was like looking at possibly going away to prison, right? And that would have been a terrible outcome for me, right? So for me, I was very happy to have that happen. So listen to how crazy the universe is. So the day that I show up for sentencing, okay, this is all like pre-planned, worked out, and my judge was on vacation. So they had a temporary judge in there, okay? And the day that I showed up for my sentencing, the guy that I hit and his entire family was there too. So whenever they have sentencing, the DA reaches out to the victim, and there's no way that he's there to say anything good about me. And I don't even blame him for that, right? You know what I'm saying? He's there to speak his piece. And I remember leaning over to my lawyer and I'm saying, oh man, the guy is here. He's here in the court. He's right there. And my lawyer said, I'm not going to have a temporary judge who is not familiar with your case, who is not familiar with everything that we've talked about, make a decision here, because they could just make whatever decision that they want to make. You know what I'm saying? And so he asked for another extension, which was granted. And then we wanted to have our sentencing done when the judge that had been overseeing the case the whole time came back. So court lets out, I hang back for a little bit, and then I go in the elevator to come down. Elevator opens, and as soon as I walk out, it's the guy and his family standing, like from me to you, bro. Like right there. It's like no hiding, no avoiding, like no nothing. And I remember walking up to him and his family, and I just told him, I said, man, for whatever this is worth to you, like, I'm really sorry. I made a mistake. I have not been drinking. I have not been driving. I never intended for what happened to happen. I'm a good person, and I just made a very bad decision. And I started crying. That dude started crying. I mean, I hugged him. I hugged his family. And I felt like we both got some closure in that moment that I know for sure that I really needed. And I hope that was helpful for him and his family too. And 2 weeks later, when I showed up for my sentencing, he and his family didn't show up to say anything bad, dude. And so it gave me this kind of feeling that it was like, at least I got to get that chapter of my life there. I could see that he was okay. I was able to make my peace and say sorry. And almost immediately after that, I moved into Salvation Army. And that was this 6-month period where, like, the Jason that's here now, that's standing in for you now, was built during that time period right there, dude. And I checked in August 13th of 2013, August 14th of 2013 for 6 months. And I'll never forget the day that I checked in was the first day of school for my kids. And I had to go say goodbye to my kids. My kids were bawling because you live there, dude. You're not like, you know what I'm saying? Like, your family can't come see you. You're living in this place, and you're living there with 100 other guys, dude, that are right off the streets, right out of prison, like very different from what I was used to at my house in Harlan Ranch that, you know, I had kind of my life that I had built for myself, dude. And so the first 30 days that you're there, you're on a blackout period, and you're allowed no contact with friends and family, no phone calls, no visitors, no nothing. And that 30-day period was probably the darkest time of my life. I never seriously considered like committing suicide or anything like that, but I was just I had so much shame and guilt and depression and all of these emotions that I was feeling. There were times where I just felt like, man, maybe it's better that I don't wake up this morning because at least it won't hurt so bad. You know what I'm saying? And I remember dealing with that a lot in that first time that I was there. And on the day that my blackout period was up, it happened to coincide with a family event where we were allowed to have family members come. And we had this big open area where everybody would meet for events like that. And there were like, remember in elementary school, like the benches with the top and then the benches on the side? We had like 30 of those there, just rows of them there, right? And I remember when I came down, I was so excited because all of our bedrooms were on top, and then you come down the stairs and the little rec area was there. So I knew this was going to be the first time I get to see my wife, my kids. And dude, I had 30 family members probably show up, dude. It was crazy. It was like my wife, my kids, everybody on my side of the family, my in-laws who I hadn't really talked to, and I thought that they were going to be pissed at me, my mother and father. I felt like I had let them down, and they all showed up, dude. And I had like 2 rows of tables and chairs just of my family that was there to kind of support me through that moment. And I remember looking around, and there were guys that I had kind of gotten acquaintances with where nobody came to come see them. Nobody was there to support them. And then as I was there longer, I realized you get 1 6-hour pass a week where you can get somebody to pick you up and you can go off site and spend time away from the facility. There were guys, they never left. In 6 months, I never saw them leave. I never saw them have one visitor. I never saw anybody come to check on them or see what they're doing. And I immediately remember like having this shift and this epiphany saying like, I actually have something to go back to when I get out of here, dude. And I think the reason why you see people having struggles with their sobriety or falling back into this old bad way of they don't have anything to go to, dude. Like, it'd be so hard to come out of a facility like that where you've got a criminal record, you don't have any money, you don't have any job, you don't have any place to go to. Like, you literally walk out of that place and you're back out on the street. And I was probably the guy that was the most fortunate of everybody there because I had a life to go back to. And I immediately started telling myself that I have to do something different, dude. If I have another opportunity to go back and all of these things have happened, it had to have happened for a reason. And now I need to do everything to be the best version of myself when I get back to my family. And that's when I started really diving into self-improvement. I decided that that's when I was going to be a real estate investor in that time that I had at the facility. And after coming out of there in February of 2014, all I did was real estate after that.
Kudos to you, man.
Thanks,
Kudos to you. I mean, my father dealt with alcoholism and everything like that. Been to the facilities, been to prison, 20 plus DUIs. Yeah. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And kudos to you that you made the change.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because my dad didn't.
Yep.
You know, he passed have liver failure. We didn't have a relationship at the end of it all. And it's really good to see people come out of that and make something of themselves for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that was just the beginning, dude. I mean, that was hard, but then it was this whole new transition into real estate, which was a brand new business, nothing that I had zero experience before, right? Like when I say, dude, I hit rock bottom and then got dragged along the bottom, that's how I really felt, dude. It felt like it was 2 years of just getting dragged completely, and everything that could have gone wrong in my life was going wrong. And that was the launching off period, dude. Like when I got out, I didn't have a driver's license for a year. So I was riding my bicycle all over Fresno, dude. And this was like February, it was raining, right? So you'd be riding my bike in my rain. And I was in a position where I refused to ask my wife or my mom or anybody to give me a ride for anything. I was like, you guys have done so much for me. I'm not going to have you coming to my house and picking me up to kind of do the things that I need to do. So I was riding my bike 60, 80, 100 miles a week. I'm 200 pounds now. I was like 150 pounds back then, dude. I was like the leanest that I've ever been because I was just doing all of this stuff. And I remember going on appointments, dude. Like, like when I was first starting, you're having to go meet with sellers at properties. And I remember a seller said to me, he goes, dude, did you ride a bike here to this appointment? And I'm there supposedly making him a cash offer on his house. And he was like, did you ride a bicycle here? And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm a bike enthusiast. I'm just really into bike riding. You know what I mean? It's good for exercise. I had to make something up on the fly right there to just kind of like break the ice and do that. But like so many people come to me and they're like, dude, I don't know, man, it's tough. And I can't make the calls and I can't do this and I can't do that. And I get it and I understand. And it's not easy at the beginning, but I'm a big believer in, if that could be my starting off point and I can make it here, dude, nobody has an excuse as far as I'm concerned. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that first year was a really tough experience. It was a year of me working every single day, and I didn't make any money from a deal till about 12 months after that, dude. Right? So I was used to working, getting paid on a regular basis and trading my time for money. And in this business, you don't get paid until you learn how to produce a result. Right? And you're not good at producing that result at the beginning. And you have to get practice and you have to get a lot of reps in and you've got to put the work in at the beginning to even get to a space where you can do it. And then once you do it once, it becomes easier to recreate and to rinse and repeat. And once you get good at producing that result over and over again, your income potential starts to go through the roof in this business. But at the beginning, you don't get paid for that, right? And so it was a year of learning and just kind of learning the hard way at the beginning as we first got started.
This is almost an exact story of, I think, maybe the fourth or fifth guest that I had on this podcast. When I started back in 2020, I want to say my fifth guest was a guy named Tony Hoffman. Do you know Tony Hoffman?
Yeah, I know Tony and I are close.
So
super cool. Yeah,
his
super
story
cool,
is almost identical, but he was a lot worse. You know, got into drugs, bad, and he went to prison. And he said prison saved his life. And while he was in prison, he met a guy that was there and introduced him to God and the Bible. And Hoffman decided what he was going to do while he was in prison and made a plan, just like you said what you were going to do when you got out. He did the same thing. He said that he was going to go to the Olympics. He said that he was going to start a recovery center. He was going to be a speaker, all that stuff. Said it in prison. And he started just by making his bed, brushing his teeth, and organizing his stuff. That's what he started when he was in prison. He was in prison for a few years. It wasn't just like a couple-month thing. So he started this in prison, said what he was going to do, and then he went and did it. In 2017 or 2016, he went to the Olympics as a coach for a girl named Brooke Crane and started his own recovery center called PH Wellness. He's done every single thing that he said he was going to do. He's the #1 substance abuse speaker in the world. He's been one of my good friends. Like it's just crazy how the world like aligns you with people that are like-minded. Like if you think a certain way, you're going to attract those certain people. And when you were telling the story, it was like this is like identical to Hoffman and like what he said. And it's just crazy how like the world aligns certain people around you.
One of the questions that people ask me a lot is, do you think that you would be here had that situation not happened? And I swear, bro, like if you gave me the option right now to just wave a magic wand and just act like that whole scenario didn't happen, I wouldn't do it, because I genuinely believe that had I not gone through all of those challenges, I like back in that time, dude, I was acting like I had more money. I actually have money now, bro. But when I was in corporate America, I was acting like I was a more big time. I had more money than I did. And I just really needed to be humble, bro. I'm not too afraid to say that there was a time in my life where I needed to have humility, and I needed to just have that in order to change. And I think it took this traumatic event to kind of shake me up and reevaluate whether, like, what I was doing with my life, what my life decisions were. And it really did ultimately end up not only giving me the courage I need, but it put me kind of in this like back against the wall moment where I was like, this has to happen. There's no way that I don't have a plan B, because I didn't think that I could go back and get a corporate job at that time. Like, knowing now, I know I probably could have if I really wanted to, but in my head I had it that it was like, dude, nobody's going to hire you. Like, who's going to hire you right now after this? You know what I'm saying? Like, this has to work. And so
you thought that you couldn't get a job, so you had to go on your own.
That's the way that I felt at that time.
Follow you.
Yeah, I felt like, and you deal with so much guilt. Self-guilt and shame is the word that I had. I was just ashamed of myself. I was ashamed of the position that I had put my wife and my kids in and my family. And even to this day, I mean, I've processed it and I've reconciled it, and I've gotten to a space where I'm okay sharing this story. And it's for me very important, because I know that there's other people dealing with hard things and that have gone through either similar events or traumatic experiences in their life, and they need to realize that it does not have to be the end if you don't want it to be, dude. Like, we always have these opportunities for rebirth. We always have opportunities to progress and evolve. And I think sometimes for some people like me, it was required to kind of go through that to get to where I'm at now.
How long did it take you to be able to share that story?
Oh God. Now I can talk a little bit more openly about it, but I mean, probably like 5 or 6 years, dude. You know, I felt like I had to do right by my family first before I could stop, before I could start talking about it. I had to feel like I had, not that I had made it, but at least I had proven to myself, and I kept my word to my family, because I told my wife, I said, this is going to be it. I was like, this is what's going to retire you. This is what's going to be our family's future. I told all of my friends that. I mean, I basically made a commitment, and I said, this is what's going to happen. And once I started getting recognition from other people, and they started acknowledging to me like, damn, dude, you're doing really good. This is really impressive. I'm really proud of you. Once I heard those things from my mom and my dad and my in-laws and my wife, I felt like I had done right by them. And so then I started becoming into a space where I felt like I could talk more openly with other people. And every time I've shared the story, and if you're listening to this, you know, one of the people at home listening to this, and you've gone through a similar experience, reach out to me, because I'm happy to help you out. If there's anything that you're struggling with right now, like I said, nothing would make me happier to be a resource to you, to kind of talk you through some of the things that I did at the beginning to get me to where I'm at. Because you feel like you're on an island, dude. You feel like you're all alone. But when you can connect with somebody that's had a similar experience, sometimes it's easier to open up when you're in that moment.
Why are you so open to help others? Because somebody in your situation, they get asked for help a lot.
Yeah.
People always want you to go in on deals, or they might want to use you for, you know, like the wrong reasons. How do you kind of help people and deal with people just trying to, you know, grab at you because of who you are, what you have done, but then also genuinely trying to help people?
Yeah, so I think there's a misconception from people, at least for me, I'll speak for myself. I had this misconception about successful people, and I felt that successful people didn't want to help an outsider, somebody that's not successful, right? And when I got into real estate, I actually found the opposite to be true. When I built up the courage to go out and actually reach out to the person that was doing the thing that I wanted to do, and I just said, dude, I'm a baby in this business. I've got a couple deals under my belt. I have no idea what I'm doing. If there's anything that I can do to provide value to you, you please let me know. And if there's any advice or insight or anything that you think would be helpful for me, I'd love to hear it. And almost 100%, not every single person, but almost 100% of the people actually had positive responses. And a lot of those people, you know, gave me good insight and advice. And a handful of them, I would say, kind of took me under their wing. It wasn't like a mentorship relationship, but I had established a relationship where if I ran into a tough spot or I didn't know how to handle a certain situation, I could reach out to those people and they could shortcut and compress my learning curve, which is what a lot of those people in your type of life will do at the beginning. And I've just learned that somebody along the way reached out and helped me. And I really genuinely believe that, I said this at the beginning, that it's my responsibility to pay that forward. And that's how the universe works, dude. When we provide value and we just do that with no strings attached, something good always ends up happening. And I don't help people because I expect anything in return. I just help people because it's the right thing to do and somebody helped me along the way.
That's awesome.
It's a good way to live too.
It is, dude. It is. And I don't, yeah.
It's just putting good karma out there and not expecting anything back.
It is.
But it will come back.
It does, man. It does, dude. And I'm a good judge of character. So if I don't vibe with somebody, or if I meet somebody initially and something feels off, right? And I feel like maybe, hey, they have some ulterior motives or something like that, my radar's pretty good for stuff like that. But, you know, I just learned that I just learned to give with no strings attached. And when you take that approach, right, and you do that, it's just been proven to me that the vast majority of the time, amazing things happen, man. And so, you know, the times where it hasn't really worked out or somebody comes, who cares? I don't care, dude. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Yeah. Here's a question. What does success mean to you now? And what does success mean to that 23-year-old Jason?
So success for me now means I want to figure out how to unlock whatever my full potential is on this earth. If I can learn how to operate with no brakes, no limiting beliefs, like no regulators on me, myself, how do I unlock that full potential? And I'm curious to see, like, not because of money or number of units or whatever, all of that stuff is fine to just kind of measure things, because we need to have a way to measure some of this stuff, but it's not because I don't do it because of the money, or I don't do it because I want X amount of properties. I'm just curious to see if I can get to a space, when I get to a space, when I unlock the Jason's full potential, I just want to see where I end up on this time that I have on earth. So that really motivates and drives me, because if you would have told me even 5 years ago that I'm doing what I was doing today, I wouldn't believe you, dude. And if you told me 10 years ago, the Jason that was just coming out of Salvation Army, that I'd be sitting here with you guys and we'd have the stuff that you have, I would have thought you're crazy, dude. There's no way. And so I really genuinely feel like I just started figuring things out in the last 4 or 5 years. The first 5 years were me just trying to keep my head above water and just try to figure out how to establish myself in this space. Things really started clicking after that. And so the way that I think is, it's like, damn, if it took me 6 or 7 years to figure it out, and I've really only kind of got this far now with 3 years of really knowing what I'm doing, what's the next 10 years going to look like? Dude?
Yeah.
And then what's the next 10 years after that? And I've been very fortunate to be around people that I would consider some of the top real estate people in our community now. And I never walked away from any of those interactions feeling, and this is not taking anything away from anybody, but I never walked away from any of those conversations, those meetings, those phone calls feeling like, man, this person has something else that I don't. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, shoot, if this person can do it, why can't I do it? You know what I mean? And that's how I've always felt. Even at the beginning, when I met the first people that really helped me out, I was like, well, dude, if this person's smart enough to do it, I know that I can do it too. I just have to figure out how to get there. And I'm not going to give up. Whatever it takes for me to do it, I'm going to get there. And so, yeah, I'm really curious to see where I end up if we can just, figure out how to unlock everything here.
What was 25-year-old Jason's
money,
definition of success?
Girls, like all the dumb stuff, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like all the stuff that you think when you're like, one of the biggest regrets that I have, and it's so cool to see what I think social media has done is that it has made success attainable, especially for people that were not raised from families or environments where there was lots of success around, if that makes sense, right?
Exactly.
So if you don't come from a background where your family has made smart investments, buys lots of real estate, makes lots of money, you don't have anybody pouring this stuff into you. And what's really cool now is with social media, I have 18, 19, 20-year-olds, young 20s, people reaching out to me like that are wholesaling deals, that are making $100,000 or $200,000 when they're 20 years old, right? And I can remember being that version of Jason when I was 20. I just didn't have an outlet. I didn't have a resource on how to do it. And so I think one of the big mistakes that I made was I wasted 20 to 30. 20 to 30, I just wasted all the money that I was making in my corporate job. It just went out the other end. I was keeping up with the Joneses. I was, buying, we had the mortgage, we had the cars, we had the credit card debt, we had all the stuff that you get when you have all of those things and you're making money, and our lifestyle crept and we started spending as much money as we were making. And, you don't want to do it because of the stuff. You don't want to do any of this stuff because of the money, because once you make $1 million, you know what happens? Nothing, dude. You know what I mean?
But
I didn't feel any different after I made $1 million.
Yeah, but that's what we're, at least, us growing up, like I was talking about earlier with, MTV Cribs, and we're kind of taught to, worship celebrities and athletes, and this is what success is to be able to do all of that stuff. And then now with social media or getting to hear stories like yours and Hoffman's and mine and Kenny's, even though it's on like a way lower level, it's like success is not what everybody thinks it is. And then once everybody gets, like, some people are fortunate when they're 20 to have a dream and then obtain it, and then they realize this isn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then they kind of have to shift, and then they find success and happiness in a totally different area than they thought when they were kids, because we're kind of programmed to all think a certain way. Like how you're talking about education earlier. We're all taught to listen to our parents, go to school, listen to our teachers, go to college, listen to our professors, get a job, listen to our bosses, and then retire and listen to somebody who's going to tell us how much to make afterwards. And everybody's programmed to, like, parents tell them, go to college and get a good job, right? That's what everybody was taught to do. Did you kind of, was that scenario, was that situation that happened to you help you open up your eyes to what the world is actually like and how the world actually operates versus what you're told how the world operates?
So you said a very important word right now, is programming. And I think whether we realize this or not, one of the things that I think people need to come to grips with is that most of our belief systems about money, our ability to be successful, our ability to achieve anything, they're not our belief systems. They're belief systems that have been programmed into us by our family, our environments, our teachers, our friends, and our family. And we have the option to adopt new belief systems if we want. And I had to go through a very traumatic event to realize that some of the belief systems that I had probably were not serving me the way that they really should be serving me. And so I had always been intrigued by the idea of like self-improvement, and I've always, I would say, dabbled in it. I didn't really take it serious prior to this, but I was intrigued by guys like Tony Robbins and just trying to be a better version of myself, right? When I was in Salvation Army, that was when I really started to take that serious. And I read for the first time when I was in there a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. And it was one of the things that really, it's something that I read periodically again, and I always get something new when I go back and I reread it. And it really just talks through how these belief systems are programmed in our mind, and it gives you different exercises and things that you can do to start implementing and applying new belief systems. And you really have to realize that you have these habits that have been built up for me, it was 35 years, dude. Like 35 years of habits. You're not going to read one book and then be a completely different person. You're not going to do practices out of Think and Grow Rich and become a new person in a year. This is going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lifelong commitment, because as soon as I start going back to those bad habits, those belief systems can start creeping in. And so I actually personally spend more time invested in how do I keep my head on straight every single day, and how do I work on developing a really strong mindset than I do like underwriting real estate deals. Like, real estate to me is the easy part, dude, because if you just show up and do the stuff that you're supposed to do every day in this business, you're going to get lots of practice getting good at real estate. So just showing up and doing the work, you'll get good at real estate. But how do you show up when you and your wife had an argument the day before and that's the only thing on your mind, or you get a call because your kid's being crazy at school, you've got to go pick them up because something happened there, or insert whatever excuse you want to insert? Because one of the things that I've learned is life is always going to throw us a curveball, a monkey wrench. Whatever plans that you think you have, just wait, because there's always going to be something that comes up. And you need to be the kind of person that can deal with that even when you're not optimally like all dialed. It's easy to be on point when everything is going good and you're fully motivated and you got a full night's rest and all of those things. It's way harder to do it when life is going crazy around you and you still need to show up every day and be consistent.
Have you ever heard the story about that book that you were just talking about, Think and Grow Rich? Have you heard that story?
No, what's the story?
About why he wrote it?
No.
So Napoleon Hill was hired by Rockefeller? No, yeah. Who
was it? Carnegie?
Yeah, it was one. So, yeah, might have been hired by Carnegie, and what he did for 20 years is he just followed successful people for 20 years.
I have heard this story.
Then just like took all these notes, and he wrote a book called The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. And literally all he did, he was paid to follow the most successful people around and figure out what made them tick, why they were different, why everybody else thought this way, and why these people were successful. And he wrote this book.
Yep.
And it got blasted out, and people loved it. And all of these rich, successful people didn't like it, and they had it taken down.
Yep.
They had every single book taken down, and they didn't let him write that book again. And then he wrote Think and Grow Rich, which is a very, very watered down version of all of these secrets that these successful people did in order to live their life. You know, because the school system was created to have workers, right? Like, you're not supposed to think outside the box. We need people to, like, you know, work still. You can't just have people just, you know, sit at home like, oh, I'm gonna have these goals and do this. Like, you got to go out and do something. But I thought I it's always interesting to me how everybody thinks the same way.
One of the things, this was, I don't know why I had this epiphany, but I can remember thinking when I was in there, there's no coincidence. I don't think that it's a coincidence that you can insert any successful person that you want. It can be Oprah, The Rock, Fortune 500 CEO. They will all tell you, if you really listen to them interview what got them successful, they'll all say some variation of like what we're talking about now. And I basically just came to this conclusion. It's like, well, my normal way of thinking has gotten me here. So maybe I need to be okay with like adopting a new way to start thinking about things. You know what I'm saying? So the question I would ask myself, if you guys are kind of in one of these transitionary periods of your life, you don't necessarily need to be in Salvation Army to think through some of these things. Just ask yourself, am I getting all the outcomes that I want in my life right now? And if I'm not getting the outcomes that I want, it has to do with you guys. It doesn't have to do with the exterior world. Everything that you're attracting in your life starts with you internally first. So you need to start fixing what's going on out here before the outcomes that you really want will start manifesting in this exterior world. And so if your belief system is off and it's not working, what's it going to hurt? It doesn't cost you anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't cost anything but a little bit of time to read up on it and some consistency of practice. And that's it. It's not like you need to go do anything else. Just go pick up one of these books, read it, start applying something that makes sense, and then call me. And in a year, if your life's not any different, I'll give you your money back. Because, I mean, it's like you're not losing anything by trying this. I guarantee you, you'll see positive outcomes if you do it.
It's crazy, too, like the mindset that just like a real estate investor has versus like a mindset that the athlete has. And it's the same. It's the same. Like you were talking about when you go to these big summits or deal champ seminars, you want to find two things to get better at and implement them the whole entire year. I do that every single day at practice. Like I would say, I want to pick on one thing that I'm going to get better at. And then every day I'm going to change that thing and then just keep stacking those things to get better at. And I mean, it's crazy that how successful people, because I would consider myself successful in the NFL world. And I would consider you successful in the real estate world, even you successful in the baseball world. But it's just to see the same things over and over in a whole different genre of work, right? It's crazy, and there's no coincidence why you're sitting here today and we're sitting here today.
Well, and the thing about success that gets people thrown off a little bit is if you look at us, right? Like somebody that didn't know us, they don't know who we are. They're like, oh, they're just two average guys. They're not successful. They don't know anything. They're not The Rock. They're not Oprah. They're not all the people that you just named because you're not famous. And some people that are famous have all this money. They might not be successful because they might not be happy with their life, right? Like success is, I always say that like I heard success is not where you are, it's how far you've came. And some of the most successful people that I've ever met in my life are my parents. Because of where they came, the kids that they raised to allow me for me to be able to do the things that I have been able to do. And one of the craziest moments happened for me this weekend when I was at the rodeo. I don't know if you know this, but I'm not a cowboy. I don't consider myself a cowboy.
But a cowboy.
No, I don't think I'm a cowboy because, and like I always say, so people, oh, you know, you're a cowboy. You know, you have horses. You know, you compete in the rodeo. I did rope in the Clovis rodeo, as you know. Drop it down. But anyways, I don't like I don't like when people call me a cowboy because I believe that it's kind of like a disservice to the guys that are
actually
cowboy that are doing it. Like I don't do, like I can do all that stuff, but that's not what I do. But it kind of came full circle for me this weekend, because I've been roping with my dad at some of the PRCA rodeos, and we won a check this weekend at one of the rodeos, so won some money. It's like, you know, pretty big deal father-son type thing. And it's kind of became, people are kind of getting my story out. So now when I'm roping, in the performances, they'll kind of say, father-son team, professional baseball players, some of the greatest athletes in the world, compete in rodeo, all this stuff. And it's a tribute to my parents, right? Because they're saying that, and like, I kind of get it, but it's because of them. And kind of like to bring this all back to my point is, when I was younger, my parents sacrificed a lot for me to be able to play sports, because I grew up around horses and rodeo and working. I didn't have access to what a lot of people had, but my parents did a lot and sacrificed a lot to make sure I had access to play on these travel ball teams, to have the cleats, to have the bats, to have all the football gear, because they wanted me to see the world from that perspective. My dad always told me, he was like, go play sports, travel the world, learn. You can always come back and rope.
Yeah.
You can always come back and rope. And I am. Like, it literally came full circle. What he told me and what I experienced in life, like, I come back and bring that, and now it's full circle. 25 years later, now, like, I'm in the rodeo scene, and I'm bringing something a little bit different, because they knew that it was very limited in this world. Like, rodeo is like, you can go to Vegas, you have, like, it's like pretty cool, but you're very limited in like what you learn. Like, your circle is very small. Like, I got to travel the world, play in 5 different countries, and then still be able to come back. And that was one of the coolest moments of my life, was with that. My dad literally said that, and then we did it, and we're doing it. It's just like a really, really crazy experience.
And it's important, man. There are positive belief systems that you get from growing up too. And so you just have to be smart enough and self-aware to understand what are the good learning lessons, that hard work, that work ethic, that ability to sacrifice, that ability to stay consistent. And it's okay to stick and keep the things that have helped get you here, right? But in order for us to evolve and become the highest and best version of ourselves, we're going to realize that there's some gaps in these other areas of our lives that we just need to fill. And that's okay. That's like when I say, hey, I have these belief systems, it's not like I had a bad childhood. I had my parents were great, dude. My parents were great. They did the best that they could. I learned a lot of amazing things. And this is not a knock on my parents at all, but like, I'm not going to go to my parents to talk about how to make $1 million a year or $5 million a year, because they haven't done that. And so I know that I can go to them for the things that I need. And if I need to supplement that knowledge gap from somebody else, I'm going to go develop a relationship with the person that can maybe guide me in that area and give me the insight and advice that I need. And we just started filling that out and becoming the best well-rounded version of ourselves, because money is important, and I believe that. So we like having money makes life easier. And for me, it's like, God forbid something goes wrong. That was why I was really big on buying rental properties. So like for me, we can talk about the business. Like for the first year, I was just wanting to bring some money in and replace the money that I was making. The second year, I finally kind of like got my feet under myself. I had doubled the amount of projects that we were doing. So it was like, all right, we finally started getting some momentum. But I knew early on that I wanted to buy rental properties, because I wanted to create kind of my own insurance policy that, God forbid, something ever happened to me, right? I didn't want to ever put my family in another situation like that. But if I got sick, if I got in a car accident, all the things that could happen, I never wanted them to be without again, right? And so I needed to get around people that could supplement those gaps that I had in my life. And I needed to figure out ways first to how to provide the value to them and help them in areas that they needed. And I just hope that maybe something that they had would kind of rub off on me. And talking about Think and Grow Rich, the very first quote unquote mastermind that I was involved in was a group of 6 of us. It was 6 investors. There was 3 or 4 guys from Fresno. There was another 3 or 4 guys from Visalia. And we used to meet in Kingsburg every Friday at 6 o'clock in the morning. And the first guy that I met, his name was Alan Folio, and he's a guy that changed my life. And I remember meeting Alan after I'd been 2 years in the business. And I met him at like this small networking event. And, sometimes you just get around people and you're like, there's something different about this guy. He just has something that somebody else doesn't. And I think those are the people that you want to gravitate towards, the people that kind of stand out in the room. I picked that up very quickly about Alan when I saw him. He wasn't even speaking there, but I could just tell when he said something, he just operated differently than everybody else. So I immediately went over to him. I talked to him after that event, and I basically told him, I said, hey, dude, my name's Jason. I've been in the business for about 1.5 years. We've done 13 or 14 flips. I like everything that you had to say, dude. And if there's anything I can do to help you in your business, please let me know. And he said, hey, my name's Alan. I'll never forget this. He goes, I've got 30 rentals and I'm going to buy 30 more rentals before the year is up. And it was like May, I think, at that time. And I remember going home to my wife and I was like, dude, I met this guy and he's younger than me and he has 30 rentals right now. And he said he's going to buy 30 more in the next 7 months. And I said, I don't know what it is, but I have to figure out how to kind of get around this guy a little bit more. And I remember telling my wife, I said, if you ever get 30 rentals, if we ever get there, you're quitting your job, I'm quitting my job. Like everything is going to be different, man. And so he ended up inviting me to that mastermind group. And those were the guys that told me that you need to start buying rental properties, because if all you're doing is fixing and flipping, you just got yourself another high paying job. And so that was really what changed that part of my life after that, just going from like fixing and flipping houses. In years 3, 4, and 5, we ran our business basically at a break even, and we sold enough houses just to pay the bills, pay my marketing expense, and we plowed everything into buying rental properties. And we bought 50 rentals in 3 years. And I never paid myself $1 out of my business for the first 5 years. I still have the very first check that I ever pulled out of my company as like an owner distribution or a draw. It's framed in my office still, was like $4,300 or something. Because I remember going to my bookkeeper and we were talking about like where we were from a financial standpoint. She goes, well, there's plenty of money in the account if you want to pay yourself. You haven't paid yourself yet. So do you want to cut yourself a check? I was like, because there's money there. And I was just so focused on trying to create this kind of moat around what we had already done. It does take a lot of delayed gratification in order to really find success in this business, because it's very easy to make money quickly in real estate. But just like the mistakes I was making when I was young, it's very easy to let lifestyle creep kind of set in. And your lifestyle can get out in front of your income very quick. And if there's a market shift or something changes or you get in a bad deal and you lose money, you can get wiped out of the business very quickly, man. And so I think the longer we can learn to delay gratification, the longer that we can learn to keep our personal finances in order, right? The faster you'll be able to get to where you want to go with your investment goals. And now we're in a space where we have the nice house and we have the things that I kind of wanted initially. And that was the way that I think I rewarded myself and my wife for the way that we sacrifice now. But we're talking about 10 years in, dude. You know what I'm saying? For a very long time, we didn't touch any money. We just grinded. We put everything back in the business. We put everything back into investments. And then we got to a space where things really started to, solidify themselves.
Do you feel like you can breathe now and relax, or you never really want that
I'm
feeling?
on all the time, bro. Like I am always on. My brain never shuts off. It's actually a challenge, because one of my goals was to retire my wife. And so my wife was a counselor at Clovis High. Then she went to McLean, and I was very fortunate 2 years ago, she retired from the school system, and she's somewhat involved in the business now. She was more involved initially when she first retired. I felt like it was irresponsible for her not to have a sense of what was going on in the business. So she's not passionate the same way that I am about real estate, but I felt like she had to have a baseline understanding of, here's where all of our bank accounts are. Here's all the people that owe us money. Here's all the people we owe money to. Here's kind of our team and how things work. And now she's been able to step out. We've got a total of 12 people that work on the team. And I can breathe in the sense a little bit because I'm not as involved in the day-to-day operations like I used to be, right? Like I'm not there going on appointments, closing deals. I'm now managing the people that I have and really working on developing the people that work for me and transferring my skills to them, and then orchestrating the business at a little bit of a higher level than I'm used to. So that's what's been different for me for the last probably 2 years, is I've stepped out of like that day-to-day role and more as a business owner instead of like an operator day-to-day.
So before we wrap up here, what are, for you to keep in that mindset of growing to be the best version of yourself, what are some of the things that you do, like your daily routine? Like you wake up, do you work out? Do you do, cold plunge? Are you pretty rigorous with your diet and your workout routines? What are the things that you do every day to keep yourself sharp and keep trying to attain your goals?
Exercise is a big thing for me. If I have a pre-scheduled workout day or a gym day that I'm supposed to do and I don't do it, I just feel off that day, right? So I try to do something active every day. Even if it's an off day from the gym, I like to do either some light cardio or kettlebell workout or yoga or something to just kind of get the blood flowing in the morning. I've done every type of morning routine that you can think of. I think if you're struggling with a morning routine, a great book to start with is Miracle Morning, and just copy and paste the routine right there out of that book. I heard Ed Milet say this, and this is something that I live by. He goes, the best days that I have are the days where I control the very first hour of my day and the very last hour of my day. So I control how it starts and I control how it ends. And I think in this entrepreneurship space, in this business space, it's always just grind, hustle, hustle, hustle. And you can't fill anybody else's cup if your cup is constantly on empty. You just can't do it. It's impossible, dude. That's the recipe for disaster. And I know lots of people that have gone, you know, pedal to the metal for a very long time, and then they just burn out because they're not spending enough time charging their own battery. So for me, a great morning routine works like getting up. I have time where I journal, and the journal that I use is called Project 369. It's a journal that I have. I've got, you know, it's got a goal setting routine. It's got a place for you to just kind of put your thoughts in different things. I spend 10 minutes doing that. I spend 10 minutes saying my goals out loud in front of a mirror. I spend 10 minutes visualizing my goals. Visualization is a really, really good exercise to activate some of the things that we need to kind of get and keep our goals front of mind. I go work out, and then I start my day, and that's what I like to do. And recently I have a cold plunge at my house. I bought one of those. I got a sauna at my house. We were talking about this earlier. I'm going to be 43 in a couple weeks. I'm legitimately probably in the best shape that I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah, you look great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And it's, you know, you have to keep your diet in order. And I'm a big believer in this of like how you do one thing is how you do most things, right? And so, you know, you've got to be mindful of that type of stuff.
You know what, like one of the craziest things that yeah, are we good? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yep.
Okay. What I think you posted the other day on your story or something that you did a cold plunge, and it was a record for however many minutes at like a certain temperature or something. What was it?
For me, yeah. So like for me, I've done cryotherapy. I go to Dr. B's place. I've been going there for years. We do cryo. In the winter, I would just jump in my pool. I have a sauna that I bought off Amazon, so I really like the contrast between hot and cold. So I'd go into the sauna for 15 minutes, and when it was wintertime, I'd literally just go in my backyard, dunk in my pool for 3 minutes, and then get out. And my pool would always be, it says it was around 45 or 50 degrees, but I got one of those, the actual plunge. That's what that's the brand that I got. Yeah. And I had it at 45. I could barely go like 20 seconds in that thing, dude. I don't know if somebody told me it's because of like the way that the water circulates or whatever in there.
Yeah.
It's like it feels colder than it did at the pool. And now the other day I did like 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So, and I'm at 50 degrees. So I'm kind of slowly working my way down.
You know what's funny is like when I saw this, and this is not, you know, like a bash on you at all, but it's like this whole, you know, cold plunge thing and all the, and like you can see him shaking his head because we've been at 50 degrees or less 10 minutes all the time. Yeah. That's what we've done like almost every day. When I was doing rehab, I did cold plunge. Now it's, you know, cold plunge everybody. When I was doing rehab, not in rehab from drugs, you know, Tommy John, different. Because I used to say, oh, you know, I'm going to rehab. People think I'm doing drugs. It's like, no, man, like I got to fix my arm. But like every day, and we would do cold tubs for, you know, like 10 minutes. And like they would say, right, like our stay between 45 and 50. Now I see people, again, this is not a bash on you because it is really hard to do. And I don't think people understand how hard 3 minutes is when it's circulating and do it. But we're just so used to it. That's just like what you were supposed to do. And now we've, you know, Kenny and I have it pretty easy. We went, you know, from like those little steel tubs to it's like, you know, a big hot tub to like literally a swimming pool. One's hot and one's cold. You could just go back and forth. But we're just so used to that. Then now this whole cold plunge thing is like, you know, taking off. And then like me and Kenny always have these jokes. It's just like, you know, like NARPs. Like they don't know like what like hard is. But it is how you were talking about sports and, you know, like entrepreneurship. You have to do the same work needs to be done in order to be successful. It doesn't matter what it is when it comes to preparation, getting your mindset right, like your rituals, your routines, whatever it takes you. You know, he had things that he did. We talked about this with CK last week, like the song that he listened to before every single game. Or the Les Brown speech that I had run through my head when I ran to the mound every single time. Like you have these rituals that you do every time to get you in the correct headspace. Just like you, like when you wake up, you need to be in the correct headspace because if you're not, when shit hits the fan, you're not going to be able to react to it, right? Like if if you're ready and you're in the zone, as you know, athletes call it, you can handle anything. Shit hits the fan, fumble. Oh, jump on the fumble.
Yep.
Like if you're not, oh my God, fumble. Who's gonna pick it up, right? Like you do all these things, same as sports, same as life, to be able to be the best version of yourself. Whether that's an athlete, whether that's a father, husband, friend, boss, leader, whatever that is. So for you, like as a leader, you said that you have 12 people under you. What type of leader are you? Are you a lead by example? I've done it. This is what you do if you don't follow type of a thing, or do you actually help and talk and coach?
I think it's a combination of both. I think for me, I've always been the type of leader that likes to be out front, because I've never liked to ask anybody on my team to do things that I wasn't willing to do. Right. So there's this natural progression, especially as you're progressing as a business owner and leader, where you are in that day-to-day operational space, and you eventually kind of have to move out. You have to move somebody in, and that person that you're moving in a lot of times needs to respect you enough to take direction. And if they've seen you doing that work, they've seen you in the trenches doing that, it just comes from a different space, in my opinion, right? And so those were the bosses that I never really liked or respected when I was in corporate America, where they would tell me, oh, do this or oh, do that. They'd never made a call in their life. They've never been on an appointment in their life. They're just regurgitating something that was told to them by somebody that, you know, blah, 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 right? So for me, I think it's a combination of leading from the front. And then I think learning and understanding that everybody's motivated by different things. I'm a very 100%. Results-based, right? You don't need to micromanage me. You don't need to be on top of me. I follow direction very well. Tell me what to do one time and I'm going to do it, right? And that's fine. And there's other people that just don't operate like that. And that's not good, bad, or whatever, but you have to realize most entrepreneurs that I meet anyways, like highly driven, successful people, operate from the same space as me. The majority of people that work for you do not operate that way. So you've got to figure out what all of the, and I don't mean buttons to push in a manipulative way, but everybody kind of has their own little buttons that need to be pushed to get the most out of them. And some of them respond better to a little bit more positive reinforcement and encouragement. Some people like me, like when I was coached hard, when I was playing sports in high school, that was the way that my coach showed me that he cared about me, because he wouldn't talk to you if he didn't care about the way that you perform. So for me, I'm fine with just give me the honest truth. Don't tell me what I'm doing good. Tell me what I'm doing wrong and tell me how to fix it. And you can be as straight and transparent as you need to be. And some people just can't deal with that level of transparency. So I think the best leaders can become almost chameleons in a sense, where they can change their style, and at least maybe not change, but adapt it to the person that's on their team that they're speaking to right there. And can they get the highest and best out of everybody on every level of the spectrum? And when you get there, like really cool and amazing things can happen. At least that's what
you'd have thought this guy played a professional sport for 12 years.
I know, right?
He's literally, we talk about this same shit all the time. But like, all right, we can go on this for hours, but we got to wrap this up. Let's have a little fun here. So the listeners know what we're doing, and Kenny's been getting a lot of heat for the judging. You've been getting a lot of heat. Everybody that I talk to, is Kenny drunk with this judging? Okay, so how we end this, I'm going to ask you 10 questions.
10?
Okay. 10 questions.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. It's fun.
Okay.
None of this is serious, okay?
All right.
10 questions. You answer them as fast as you can. You only have 1 minute to complete all 10 answer. Okay. So you have to answer them quick.
All right.
Kenny's going to judge you. Now, his judging has been a little off because CK last week was pretty good, right? And he scored him like middle of the road, and people have been coming for him. So he I don't know how he judges, but you have to answer to what he thinks is a good answer.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I don't know how
I'm going to give you the answer that comes to head wherever the judges. That's it. Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to go. But if I don't agree with it, then you're going to get.
We're going to roll with it. All right. I don't know any of these questions. I don't know anything. So this is right off the top.
You don't know any of them. 10 questions as fast as you can. Make them good. Kenny or Izzy, give me the countdown.
3, 2, 1.
What is your favorite sport?
Basketball.
If you can eat one thing all day, every day, what would it be?
Pizza.
The most famous contact in your phone.
Oh God. The famous contact in my phone. I'll say Dean Rogers. He's the only professional athlete that I know that's in my phone.
If you were a potato, who would you like to be cooked? How would you like to be cooked?
French fried.
3 things you're bringing with you on a deserted island.
Ooh, plenty of water, my wife, and Something to eat. Food supply.
Team that you hate most in all of sports.
God, Chicago Bulls, because I'm a Knicks fan and they could never get past the Bulls.
Favorite non-sports movie.
Ooh, Goodfellas.
Dinner with any sports star, dead or alive. Who is it with?
Muhammad Ali.
If you were a stripper, what would your stripper name be?
Ooh. God, I don't know. Stripper name? I should have listened to these questions before.
No, that's cheating.
It is cheating. I don't know. Blank pass. What's the next one? I'll come back to it.
Kendrick Lamar or Drake?
Kendrick Lamar.
Stripper name.
Oh, God.
Come on.
Juicy J.
There you go.
Hey, that works. How we do on time, Izzy?
Do we make it?
125.
Oh, God.
You're getting docked.
Damn.
You're getting docked. How do you feel about your
I should have
answers,
had the
first of all?
camera up somewhere, dude, and then that way I could have known. I like that better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those
we
were
could.
good. Those were. I like those. It was a mix all over the board. I got stumped on a couple of them, but it wasn't bad.
That's the process.
Okay, go ahead.
So
B.
he's a pretty tough judger.
Yeah, that's okay.
You started off hot.
Yeah.
Started off a great
Started off-
basketball answer. You really
Yeah.
stroked him with that
pizza.
one.
Yeah.
Man. Desert Island, all right until you got to the
To
third
the last
one.
one. Yep.
And it's all about like how confident you are with the answers and how
I think that he has a stripper name. He just didn't want to say it.
know,
He just
right?
didn't want to
I
say
would have
his name.
said it
That's
if
what
I
it
did.
was.
I never thought about that before. I had to think of something with my name in it, so that's what came to me afterwards. Yeah.
CK's was he had a little pause and he looked in the camera and said it all.
I forget what he said though. What he said?
I don't know. Pamela, some rubbing oil.
Give
or
me the real,
chicken.
bro. What do you think?
All right.
You don't have to hold back.
I'm
bro.
going. You're gonna be better than
Greg Pinelli.
Greg Pinelli. For
Okay,
sure.
well that's good.
Yeah, he's the worst. 6.9
Okay, out of 10.
out of 10.
All right, I can
The
live
highest is 8.5.
8.5.
with it. Okay.
He's a tough judge.
I live with that. If I next time the clock, when you guys bring me on the next one,
We'll do
we
it.
need a clock.
We'll
on the
do
next
it. Yeah,
one.
yeah. We need to bring you on because
That's
we
right.
didn't even get into half the stuff. We can get into the good stuff next time. Jason, appreciate you coming in. Your Instagram. What's your Instagram? Just in case people want to. Okay. And like, by the way, I don't know how you don't have like 1 million followers because like the information that you get and like the content, it's crazy. So
We don't try to gatekeep anything. Everything that we do, we try to give as much of it as we can away for free. So you can go to my website, jasonpritchard.com. Literally go there, download every single free resource that we use in our business every single day. You just put your name and email in there. You can download all that stuff for free. Every core document in our business is there that we use every day. If you want to follow me on social media, Instagram is probably the best place. It's Jason Pritchard. We post as much useful information, and I try to speak to the Jason that was getting into the business 10 years ago. So I try to give as much of that encouragement, value, knowledge for all the people that are in corporate America right now that want to make that transition. They're dealing with those limiting beliefs. They're dealing with, how do I, get out of this, that rat race, that type of stuff. So those are the two places that you can find me.
cool. All right, give him a follow. Give us a follow.
Hell yeah.
Like, share,
Tell your
share.
friends.
Tell your friends. Mayweather Boxing and Fitness. All right, see ya.
Appreciate it.